What is up, my fellow hikers and bikers? In this video, I'm going to be doing a quick review of the Organic Maps navigation system. This is a relatively new app. I think it came out in 2020 or 2021, but it is completely free and open source and allows you to download the maps for offline use. And it does this by using OpenStreetMaps as its primary mapping source. If you're unfamiliar with OpenStreetMaps, basically it is a crowdsourced or crowd-run or crowd-contributed website where you or I could create an account. We could go on and add in missing trails, missing attractions or points of interest. We can even suggest updates to restaurants or trail names or difficulties. So it's very cool. And anytime somebody makes changes like that to OpenStreetMaps, after a few days to a few weeks, it'll eventually get approved and it'll roll out to their website as well as apps like Organic Maps. So far, I've had no problems seeing every single trail in my state. There hasn't been anything missing. And the more I dig into it, the more I see that there is a very, very large community that's out there trying to add in all of this information to OpenStreetMap. So this is very reassuring to someone like me who hikes and mountain bikes. And of course, I just want to reiterate, these are all offline maps. So if you're in an area that is a complete dead zone, or if you want to just turn on airplane mode to save battery, you can. This app will work. So enough about that. Let's just jump into the settings real quick. There's not a whole lot I want to go over with because as a hiker, you really don't need most of this information. I mean, obviously measurements, you can adjust between that. You can turn on 3D buildings. You can choose where you want to save your maps to. You can do internally, or if you have an SD card, you can save them on there as well. So you're saving some space on your phone. Mobile internet, you can adjust it so that it will only update the maps when you have Wi-Fi, or you can just have it do it when you have mobile internet as well. Power savings mode, this is something that I'm going to be testing in a future video. I'll go on a hike and toggle between the three options here. But apparently you can adjust the power savings mode, I believe, with pretty much any hiking app. GPS is going to regularly reach out to the GPS towers, and that can use up battery life. So I believe power savings mode, you can just adjust depending on what level you choose, how often GPS will go out and check for your location. But I'll dig in more on that in a future video. There's also night mode. You can go through all of this. Oh, another cool thing is the voice instructions. They've got turn-by-turn directions, so it's not really that important as a hiker. But if you are in an area that has a whole bunch of different trails that overlap with each other, you could turn that on, and as you're navigating, your phone will let you know when to take a left or a right. So yeah, it's there. I currently have it off. Route options, this is more for when you're driving. You can avoid toll roads, unpaved roads, and so on and so forth. Excuse me. All right, so let's go into the map itself. So the cool thing about Organic Maps is as soon as you open the app for the first time, it's going to use GPS to try and find your current location. And then once it locks in, it's going to pop up and ask you if you want to download the maps for your location. Typically, it's the state you live in or the area that you're living in. And the files can be relatively large, so I would personally recommend doing this when you're connected to Wi-Fi, especially if you have limited amounts of data to use on your cell carrier. But yeah, downloading is pretty quick. I think it took about 10 seconds. And it'll only do the area that you're currently in. So in my case, I'm in New Hampshire. If I was to go and hover over Maine and zoom in, it's going to pop up and ask me if I want to download Maine's maps. And I could if I want to, but I really don't because I don't hike in Maine. So I can just scroll back over to New Hampshire, and as soon as I cross the border, the pop-up goes away. So now let's just kind of dive into the app here. There's on the top left, there's layers. I just turn the layers off. If you press it, you can choose between terrain and subway. Now, subway is not going to work if you're in an area that doesn't have subways. You're going to get this message, subway map unavailable. However, if you live in the city or a heavily populated area that has subways, then you could turn that layer on. For hikers, though, the terrain is probably the layer that you're going to want to use. As you can see, all the little lines just appeared over around the mountains. You zoom in, more details will appear. Zoom in really far, and you can actually see the trails already, the little red lines. And if you zoom in really close, you'll actually see the trail name, which is pretty cool. Another cool thing is if you click on a mountain peak or a point of interest, it'll actually pull up some Wikipedia information about that particular location. Now, this is all coming from OpenStreetMaps, which is really cool. And this all works offline. It's actually saving this information on your phone. Now, let's say I want to find a trail. You could zoom out and go to the general location and then zoom in, or you can press the little magnifying glass at the bottom left here, and you can choose between different categories, or you can type in a trail name or a mountain peak. Now, I want to type in, let's say, Boulder Loop Trail, and it's going to find every single location in New Hampshire that has Boulder Loop Trail in it. Now, the one we want is in Alton, New Hampshire. So if I click on it, it'll go to that location and it'll highlight the trail in blue. So this is pretty cool. It doesn't actually create the start and end points. They leave that up to you. It just highlights, letting you know this is the trail, and it goes to Mount Major. Now let's say that we want to actually navigate this trail. You can zoom in to the starting location and then long press. You'll see that little blue dot. And you can, at the very bottom, you'll see route from, save, route to, and share. We're going to pick route from. And then we can actually go right to Mount Major, the peak, long press, and do route to. And then up at the very top, you can choose between car, walking, subway, and bike. Now, as you noticed, it's not using the original trail that we searched, which is the Boulder Loop Trail. It's this bottom one here. It's using another trail, and that's because it's trying to pick the quickest way to the peak. If we want to switch it to use Boulder Loop Trail, Organic Maps has a feature. It's not called waypoints. It's something different. It's called stops. It acts similarly to it, but it's mainly made for when you're in a car and you have multiple stops on the way. But I use it to kind of get around this shortcoming where it uses the quickest route instead of the route that I want to go on. So all you got to do is find the trail that you want. I usually go about halfway and long press on it and then do add stop. And then it'll recalculate the route, letting you know, okay, the one is that stop that you want to do. And it'll show at the bottom here that it's estimating that it'll take me 54 minutes to hike this. It's 1.5 miles. And then it's got the other information about the elevation or, elevation. Now you can't really expand it or see any other information. I do know that the developers are working on more information pulled from OpenStreetMap. So maybe in the future, we'll be able to see the difficulty of trails, whether or not you can ride a bike or do a different sport on it. But for right now, this is about all you get. Now, if we hit start, if we were at the starting location, the parking area, we could hit start and it would navigate us through the hike just like you would expect with a hiking app or a normal GPS like Google. But because we're not there, if we hit start, it's going to say navigation is available only for your current location. Do you want to use this route for your current location? If you hit OK, it's going to basically navigate you from wherever you're currently located. In my case, I'm in the southern part of New Hampshire. So it would show like how to drive there and then how to walk it. So really, you'd only want to use the navigation when you're in the parking lot. Typically, I don't use it. I will just plot out my trail like this. And then once you get there, it'll show a little GPS icon with a compass arrow showing you which direction you're aiming in. Usually, I will just rely on that. I won't hit the start and navigate. You could, but I don't. It's not a huge deal. So another cool thing is they have a favorite system built into this, or a bookmark system. If you press the little star at the bottom, you can actually see lists that you can create or that are there by default. My Places was there by default. I added in swim spots. You can also import bookmarks. Bookmarks are your GPX files or your KML files, those types of files. And I just want to briefly mention that GPX isn't currently supported on here, but it is being rolled out soon. So in the future, you'll be able to import those, but for now, you're going to have to convert them to one of the other two supported file layouts. So yeah, if we go to swim spots, you can actually see some of the places that I picked. And if I click on it, it navigates to that location, zooms in, and shows a little icon. Now I could click on that icon, swipe up, and I can actually edit the bookmark. I can choose between the different lists. I can add it to a different list. I can change the name. I can add a description, and I can even change the icon color. So this is pretty cool, especially if you're planning out a long vacation in a particular area and you want to bookmark all of the different trails or waterfalls or beaches in that area. You can do that and save it all into a separate list called vacations. That's kind of what I've been doing. I'll pick out a trail and then I'll add in all of the areas that I want to check out in that specific spot. So that's pretty much it. That's the major features of this. Now, I thoroughly enjoy this app because it is all completely offline. Now, I still use other hiking apps like AllTrails because it has the comments from people, the trail conditions and photos and information like that. But when I'm hiking, I need something that can work when there's no signal. And this has been one of my most primary navigation apps besides a normal map and compass. I would highly recommend having this installed on your phone, if not as your primary navigation system, but at least as a backup. Because there are often times if you have AllTrails, the free version, sometimes the app will crash and you'll lose your cached map. Or if you zoom out too far and you go over to the right or something and you zoom in and then you zoom back out and go back over, you'll lose your cached map. At least that's what's happened to me a few times. And if you're in an area with a whole bunch of different trails, it can get confusing. Fortunately for me, I have multiple devices and I have a map and compass, so I have never gotten lost, knock on wood. But this is pretty damn awesome. It's going to be an invaluable tool that I have on all of my electric devices. So yeah, stay tuned for my next video. I'm going to be reviewing the battery adjustment settings. I want to see how much battery this actually uses when I'm using the navigation portion of it. So yeah, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any recommendations or suggestions or just questions about this, please leave a comment. I constantly read them and I'll reply as soon as possible. So yeah, hope you enjoy this.